the Middle East, and it would pivot, it would turn around, and it would face towards the Pacific. This is, I mean, for us in Asia, this is quite obvious why you would do that. There are enormous opportunities for countries in Asia, for countries engaging in Asia, but there's also growing challenges here. So this pivot, or this rebalance, is aimed at addressing those challenges and grasping those opportunities when they're available. So, has this pivot been successful? And should it and will it continue? So we can try and measure this by maybe two standards. First, we compare the current situation to when Barack Obama came to office in 2008. In 2009, the Obama administration signed the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, which IAC students all know, but maybe BAS students, this is the landmark ASEAN treaty, the first treaty that ASEAN countries signed in 1976, which sort of codifies the rules of the game in Southeast Asia. Maybe this doesn't seem important, but ASEAN in the mid-2000s extended these rules, which were successful in Southeast Asia, extended them to the wider Asia-Pacific region. So ASEAN is a signatory to these rules, all 10 ASEAN countries, but you've also got China, India, Australia, New Zealand, where am I up to? Japan, Korea, Timor, Papua New Guinea, Russia, USA, also signatories to this agreement. This is quite important. This ascension to the TAC then opened the door for the United States to join the East Asia Summit, which Obama has attended every single year, bar one, which was 2013 when there was a government shutdown. Under President Obama, engagement with other ASEAN-led mechanisms of the regional architecture has sort of expanded greatly. So in the ASEAN Regional Forum, America is active. In the ASEAN Defense Ministers Meeting Plus, very active. What have we got? Obama invited the 10 ASEAN leaders to the Sunnylands Summit, which was in California early this year. It's the first time all 10 leaders have gone for a sort of like a ASEAN +1 meeting to North America. ASEAN was the first country to appoint, the United States was the first country to appoint an ambassador to ASEAN in 2008, and then the first country to appoint a resident ambassador in 2011 to ASEAN. They have lifted the dialogue relationship to a strategic level. There is also a growing number of Fulbright scholarships, and I don't know if you guys have heard of this, the YSEALI program, which if you haven't joined this program, I really suggest you get into it. This is, we've had 60,000, I think, young Southeast Asian academics, students, young leaders, aged between 18 to 35 who have joined this program and had the opportunity to go and travel to America. And I actually saw a conference when Barack Obama was here in ASEAN in October, where he had like a town hall meeting with young students. They could ask questions and anything about what do you think about the rise of China to how has Michelle Obama enjoyed being in the White House. So it's a great opportunity to get into that. I think it's one of the great legacies of the Obama administration is YSEALI. Obama has visited every ASEAN country except Brunei in his time as president. He's the first ever sitting president to visit Laos. This was just a couple of months ago. He has used the mechanisms, the multilateral ASEAN-led mechanisms of the regional institution to engage with ASEAN and the wider Asia-Pacific, I think, with satisfactory success. We can be happy with his engagement here. When his term began, he sought proactively to chart a course which was very different from his predecessor, George W. Bush. George Bush, in the context of the war on terror, the United States was averse to multilateralism, do not like going to multilateral forums. Obama has attended almost every year to multilateral forums. George Bush would not even send his Secretary of State to go to the ARA. Just a waste of time. Why do we want to go there? They did not want to join Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, refused, because they were worried that they would get entangled and pulled into the complex sort of noodle bowl of alliances and relationships in East Asia. that's a fundamental misreading of what multilateralism in Asia is. George Bush was also worried in the context of the Iraq War that going to somewhere like East Asia Summit or going to ASEAN Regional Forum, the US might be embarrassed at a global stage. There might be some small little country like Brunei who would come up and say something awful about the United States at a global level. This could be potentially embarrassing. And it was not sort of in line with domestic expectations. So if we look at Obama's pivot through the lens of his predecessor, I think we can say the pivot has been very successful. This level of engagement is not just face-to-face meeting with the leaders for the first time, but there's been incredibly successful policy announcements, not least of all, white sealing. So the constructive engagement, I think, if this continues under the next administration, is a very, very good thing. We can hope for, some continuity in the United States policies towards East Asia and ASEAN. The second way we can measure this pivot is by looking at the relationships that Obama will leave behind on January 20th? Yeah, 20th of January. And this ties into the challenges that the incoming leaders are going to have to face when they become, whoever it is, Clinton or Trump becomes president. First is TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is a multilateral trade agreement between 12 countries of the Asia-Pacific region. This was the economic centerpiece for the pivot. And both on the far left of the Democrat Party and guys like Bernie Sanders, or even on the moderate right of the Republican, or maybe the far right of the Republican Party now, is completely unacceptable. The TPP in its current form is dead and buried. I think it's gone. Hillary Clinton had said that she hoped it would be the gold standard for trade agreements in the region. She's a supporter of free trade, and maybe in some other form it could be revived if she hits a second term or something, who knows. But for now it's gone. How about bilateral relationships? There have been some shifting sands in bilateral relationships under the Obama administration in the pivot. Some positives: Vietnam, Myanmar. When my parents were my age, the Vietnam War between the United States and Vietnam and other states as proxies was like the defining moment of their youth, right? Now there's no two countries in ASEAN that are quite as close as Vietnam and the United States. This is a monumental change. Another is Myanmar. This is one area that Hillary Clinton is particularly proud of, is that as Secretary of State, she sort of feels like she created some of the conditions that allowed the democratic process to take place. So this is, I think, for now, the US will be rewarded with good relations with Aung San Suu Kyi. Just last week, sanctions were dropped somewhat from the Myanmar-United States trade. So these are successes. Other sort of steady relationships, solid relations, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, these have gone along steadily. I think they're quite good relations by and large. But there are some causes for concern. Philippines, if any of you have watched the news in the last 2 months, and of course, Thailand. Thailand is still considered a major non-NATO ally of the United States, but bilateral relations, even before the coup, were in a long adjustment since the Cold War heyday. This is not a bad thing, actually. Thailand is a country which has famously loved to balance between the powers. It sort of balances and hedges between big powers in between. So coming down from the Cold War heyday, which was totally bandwagon with the United States, this is not too bad. The problem is that after the coup, maybe Thailand is getting a little bit hot and heavy with China, maybe a little bit with Russia as well. So this is a cause for concern for the incoming president. In Thailand today, somehow, every statement from the United States towards Thailand if it's about anything, if democracy, transition, human rights, basically anything, it seems to elicit a disproportionate reaction from those in power and those, even those on the street. But behind the scenes, I think some muted cooperation, some continuity is still going on. Thai leaders pre and post-coup expressed interest in the TPP, which is good. Cobra Gold continues on. Cobra Gold is an annual joint military exercise. It used to be the largest joint military exercise in the world. It's in the Gulf of Thailand and Andaman Sea. It still goes on, although it's reduced in size a little bit. Bilateral trade and investment is pretty steady. It's been reducing, but it has not dropped or completely gone backwards. And military to military links, quite important. We're still on a fairly solid foundation. But there are still public tensions and distrust between the Obama administration and the current government. So what if? What if Hillary Clinton should win? If she should win, I think she would have a small window of opportunity to reframe the relationship with Thailand. Obama has been troubled. He can't quite re-correct the ship in 2014, 15, 16, because his administration took a stand, a pro-democracy stand after the coup. So turning that around for him is quite difficult. But Hillary can come in and she can reset that relationship. They can resume the same kind of positive relations that have been going on for 180 something years. So a change of government can be very good for US-Thai relations should the right person come in. It's hard to say what Trump will do. He has no history with Thailand. I'm sure he's got no policy. And the the American policy towards Thailand is not keeping up at night. He's not thinking on Twitter about what to do with Thailand. Overall, broadly, I think there will be somewhat of a pullback in American engagement with Asia in a Trump presidency. This could bring instability to the region. A lot of Thais, maybe those in government, might be happy with this kind of pullback, but in the long term, this is not a good thing. Second, we've got the Philippines. The Philippines has been the United States' most important and most long-standing ally in Southeast Asia, but the bilateral relationship has become a hot topic for all the wrong reasons. President Duterte has launched this brutal crackdown, war on drugs. It's resulted in thousands of deaths and probably some, we could say, egregious human rights violations. He has vehemently rejected any criticism from the United States, and specifically Barack Obama. He's called Obama every name under the sun, I'll say that. He's gone to Beijing and he's announced a formal separation from the United States. He's cancelled some military purchases, like a rifle deal was one that he cancelled this week. He's threatened to expel US forces, and he has even proposed a new alliance with China and Russia, two countries which won't criticize him for his human rights violations. Actually, this seems like possibly the worst case scenario for the United States. This actually could be like if you look at it like this, could be the most damaging legacy, the most damaging thing to the legacy of Obama's pivot. I'd say under no circumstances is this good news, but for the next generation that comes in, it is not doomsday. It's not end of the world. Because there's a couple of constraining factors for Duterte and what he kind of wants to achieve and what he promises to do. First is that the Philippines is the #1 country that has that loves the United States. They're ranked #1. No country loves the United States more than the Philippines. So if he keeps cracking down, getting angry at the Philippines, he might upset his constituents. Second is that there is some stickiness in the alliance, and that is at the military to military level. If there were some rumblings I heard of a military coup that might happen in the Philippines. I don't think it's going to really happen, but that rumor sort of comes from the idea that the military to military relations between the the Philippines and the United States are very, very strong, and if Duterte wants to sort of undermine that, well, perhaps he might run into some opposition from the military. One policy that he has announced, very timely, is to increase the pay of military members, so that might prevent it for a little while, but it might not last forever. And third, the Philippines is not abandoning the US to go to China. First, to cancel the United States alliance requires Senate approval, which is never going to happen. Second, this is not abandonment of the US, but it's actually more of Duterte's own rebalance. The previous Aquino president, he completely bandwagoned with the United States. He was in the United States 110%. And this came at the detriment of relations with China. In every ASEAN country, China is the first or maybe second trading partner, except for Philippines, ranked fifth. Even European Union is above China. European Union is miles away. China's just across the sea. So, every other country in ASEAN with their development in the last 10 years have ridden on the back of Chinese investment and the Chinese market, not the Philippines. So you can't really blame Duterte. He sees, hey, we've missed this opportunity of coming up with China. I think it's fair enough that we also maybe rebalance away from the United States and get some of that sweet Chinese money, sweet Chinese investment coming into and helping our country. So he's not completely abandoning the US, but he's just resetting, rebalancing. In effect, all that Duterte is doing is changing the Philippines' foreign policy to being a bandwagon to being a hedge, which is the same as what every single other country in ASEAN is doing as well. Now, the importance is that the incoming US president will have to accept and understand these nuances in the relationship. I actually could imagine Trump and Duterte having a pretty good relationship. Right? They could be quite good friends. You could imagine them going to a casino together or having dinner together and maybe having a great night. But at the end of the night, after they've had a couple of drinks and they get into an argument, we might have a nuclear war. So you could imagine these guys maybe get along with each other, but the relationship could be very, very volatile. Should Hillary Clinton become president, she might have a very difficult time dealing with